So how do you explain that the institutions have so much power that they can have or they have had until now their own exam over the existence of a national exam?
Well, in this case, in this particular case, University of São Paulo is the biggest institution in Brazil, probably one of the big institutions in South America. I'm not sure exactly to compare to other countries, but certainly a very important school in Brazil and in Latin America. So University of São Paulo had this history, of presidents and governors and politicians. So it was really a very selected school. Okay, so they could afford to do this. They could afford to have their own exam because they had a history behind them that would support them to have their own exams.
It sounds like it's an autonomous university.
No, it's the state. It's funded by the state of São Paulo.
Yeah, but autonomous. In other words, the government.
Yeah, it's autonomous. The government gives the budget, and that's it. So all the decisions are taken inside the university. There is no influence from the government. The only influence from the government is maybe to decide on the rector. The rector is selected by the governor, and maybe a few things in the advisory board, but most of the decisions are really from the university.
Mm-hmm. What other schools of engineering do you consider? And if you didn't consider any, what other schools of engineering are there in Brazil that people aspire to attend?
Well, there are several. I came from University of São Paulo, but there are several good schools. In my state, the state of São Paulo is very rich. So we have three main universities: University of São Paulo, University of Campinas, and State University of São Paulo. And we have a few private universities in São Paulo. But we have the federal universities. So we have good federal universities in several other states. Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, Federal University of Santa Catarina. So each state has a federal university. And usually each federal university has a very good program. For example, Federal University of Santa Catarina has a very good program in mechanical engineering, in electrical engineering. Federal University of Minas Gerais has very good programs in mining and metallurgical, like earth science that we have here at School of Mines. So it depends on the state, depends on what kind of history and tradition actually support the school. So there are very good schools in Brazil, in other states. I grew up in São Paulo and I went to stay in my home city. I didn't want to go to another place, but I could have taken an exam in another state if I wanted.
And during so many years of military governments, didn't the military, didn't they create polytechnics or technical institutes?
Those are the high schools, I would say. So this, I think they are trying to have a high school, a technical high school that was so good that they would take the power from the university, the political power, okay? Because the military at that time want to have very good, technical people capable to work in the industry, but people who would not be discussing, their position in the society, okay? That would be the perfect for them at that time. So I would say that this movement would be more in the high school. We had the Center for Federal Education. It was in between a technical high school and a college, and we still have those centers for federal education in Brazil. And that would be on these lines that you are talking.
You say federal or technical?
It's a mix. It's an institution that has a high school degree, or used to have, now they change, but used to have a high school degree, and then let's say a liberal arts program or math or something just to support that. So the technical part would be a high school to form technicians, and then probably you have some programs for mathematics or for other areas.
So if you want to become an engineer in Brazil, you really have, what are your choices then? You have the autonomous university.
Yeah, we have the state universities funded by the state, we have the federal universities, and we have a good some private schools in engineering. We have the how to say that in English? Pontifícia Universidade.
Yeah.
In Portuguese is Pontifícia Universidade Católica. It's a
Right.
Catholic school. So those are good schools. They have degrees in engineering, they have degrees in physics, they have several degrees in math, in biology. And there are a lot of private schools in Brazil, but they are more, no, they are not research oriented. They are more to give you a degree so you can have a position in the market, but you are not educated into a research profession.
Okay. So tell me about going to the University of Sao Paulo and studying engineering.
That was a big challenge in my life because, as all the students know, going to a college, a lot of things change. That time in Brazil was 1981, and University of São Paulo was really famous to have a lot of students who actually were against the government because we had a military government. We didn't have elections for president. We didn't have elections for several positions. And so we are kind of coming to an end of the military age, and the University of São Paulo was still the bastion of people who were trying to show the society that a lot of changes have to be made in the society. So I came to the university at that time. I remember still having strikes in the university that we didn't have classes because we are against some political decisions of the government. I remember in 1984 I walked all over my city, São Paulo, in a movement called Direta Já. Direta Já means you want direct elections now, okay, Direta Já. So that was the political situation that I had in Brazil, and at the same time we had computers, we had a lot of things in technology that were starting. So we had this huge movement of people concerned about how is our society, and we had a market of industries that were still protected by the military government with jobs available for us. So it was today that I am more mature, I think a little bit different, because in a way you are fighting against the government because you believe that the military control is not good. On the other way, you have jobs available because you have industries. So
Right.
Today doesn't make sense for me. At that time, I don't know, maybe I was not mature enough.
But were all your engineering student peers politically engaged as you were, or that was Marcelo being Marcelo?
No, depends. My school was called Escola Politécnica da Universidade de São Paulo. It was a school that was actually older than University of São Paulo. University of São Paulo was created in 1940s, and my school was created, I don't know exactly, I forgot, but it was created in 1889, 1890 or so. So it was older. The engineering school was integrated in university later. Okay, so that school had, the typical engineering students, nerds, concerned about calculus, about math. But across the street we have the political science students, we had the humanities students, so everybody was still going to the same cafeteria, everybody was going to the same play soccer in the same place, so we had interaction by the students, okay? But it was, I would say that this political movement was more a university thing than the engineering school. The engineering school, would be better for the students that time to just, study and calculus and physics and math and do not be involved in any of those political movements. So it was a little bit of myself, but we had other students who also were involved.
Mhm. Did you get in trouble with the engineering faculty or other engineering students
No,
because of your
no.
political views?
No. That time we had an opening of the military. The military government in Brazil was really hard in 1970s. Okay, we had a military government that really, unfortunately, really killed some people. But in my generation, we didn't have that. It was more, the end of the military government, and we still have to keep showing that we have our position in the society. But I didn't get in any trouble. Right? I know that before me, people 10 years older than me, they had some political troubles, but I never had.
It's interesting that when we started talking about your experience at the University of Sao Paulo, that it is precisely this chapter of Brazilian history that you remember the most.
Well, I was 20 years old, so I had a lot of energy. I would stay awake the whole night for anything, so that I remember a lot. But I also remember that towards the end of my engineering school, when I was in the engineering in Brazil is 5 years, so fourth and the fifth years they are really technical. So those are the ones that I enjoy the most, technically speaking, because I learned things that were related to my profession. I learned electronics, I learned circuit design, I had a lot of laboratories. I had a degree in telecommunications. That time telecommunications was not yet a big field at that time, but I enjoyed that telecommunications that time, and I knew that I could learn a lot of interesting things in telecommunications. So I also had a very good technical education, and I had some professors who had some influence on my research career. I had a professor who it's still related to the political situation, but he was trying to have a protection of the computer market in Brazil. For a few years in Brazil we had this protection where we could not import computers, we could not import anything related to computer technology because we had to buy computers from the Brazilian industries. And one of the professors that I had, and actually he was considered to be our best teacher, he was involved with discussions in Brasilia. Brazil is the capital of Brazil, to protect the market. And it was very interesting because that time I could not understand that protection of the market has to do with the way that the government runs. And I used to see things with one glass, and on the political side, and on the technical side I had to use other glasses. And today I know they are actually related to each other. So that time all the computer industry in Brazil was possible because we had this movement in Brazil where we had some laws to protect the market, and we had a lot of jobs. So when I started working in the telecommunications industry, we had this growth of the computer related industries with a lot of jobs, and then eventually I had to work with technology related to computers. And the technology that was related to computer that was more within my interest was related to switching mode power supplies. Every computer, if you open the computer, there is a box. That box you connect to the outlet, and it converts your 120 volts AC into your DC voltage that you use inside your computer. So I had an internship. This is something that I didn't mention before, but I had an internship since I was in the second year of my college. So in addition to my studies and my interest in politics, I had a technical internship from my second year to my fifth year, where I really learned a lot of things in that particular place. That place was a research institute inside my university. It was called technical foundation for development of engineers, something like that, okay, because it has a name in Portuguese. So I learned a lot, and that I had interaction with those professors who had companies and who are trying to establish this computer market. So that motivated me a lot. When I graduate,